Just got a new car dropped off at the shop. It's a 400 GT. So yeah, it's one of these square Ferraris, late into the models that I usually work on, but it's a carbureted V12. So it kind of falls into what I normally work on. They're not easy to work on. These cars of this era, they put these the DCOE side draft carburetors. Pretty impressive when you pop the hood and look at it. 365 GTC4s and 400 GTs all had this kind of setup when they were carbureted. Then the later ones went to injected, but they're labor intensive just simply because of the way the layout is with these carburetors. Whenever you have to do a valve adjustment, all the intakes have to come off, and all the carburetors, linkages and everything, just to do a valve adjustment. The other funny thing, and I've said this before, is that look at the clearance here on the side. How do you get the air cleaners out? You kind of don't. I mean, it's really difficult because inside these air boxes are velocity stacks. So getting things snuck out of here sometimes is a little tough. But I said I would take a look at this car. So the owner said that it doesn't run really well. I think it needs a clutch, so I think I'm going to have to pull the transmission out and put a new clutch in this thing. And then he kind of said, let me know what else it needs. There's a few oil leaks here and there. I'm going to let the car sit and see where the oil's leaking from. There's a couple oil leaks on this car where you really can't fix unless you pull the engine. I not really want to pull the engine, but at the same time, if those oil leaks are there, then you know, what choice do we have? But I'm going to look at it and figure out where the oil is coming from, and since we have to do a valve adjustment, all this stuff has to come off anyway, so at least we know that the top end valve covers, the normal oil leaks that we see, can be replaced. But the first problem I have, besides the fact that the clutch engage is really high, is the fact that this car runs like crap. I mean, I could barely get it off the truck. It really felt like it was running only on 6 cylinders. I mean, it just didn't have any power whatsoever. And And then to exacerbate the problem with a clutch that's probably on its last legs, you had to rev the car up really high just to keep it idling, and then slip the clutch to get the car to move. Because if you just tried to run it on its own, you know, the car would stall out, would not idle, would not stay idling. Admittedly, it's pretty cold today, so you know, oil was not helping. The heavy oil, thick cold oil was not helping. But the driver that delivered it, my transport guy, was like, look, even when it was in Florida, it didn't run worth a damn anyway. So what I think the plan is, before I tear this car apart, I'd like to take a look at these carburetors and timing, see if I can just get it running. Because if I do all this work and we find that there's a problem with the carburetors, or there's a problem with something with the ignition, then I won't know that until after I put the car back together and after I do the clutch. So I think, even though the clutch is worn out, I can at least get this car tuned. I gotta take the air cleaners off anyway, so I might as well check to see what the balance of the carbs are doing, and also just check ignition. That shouldn't take me too long, but I think it would still have to be touched up when I put everything back together, but at least I'd have an idea of what this engine is doing. Why is it not running? I mean, just something's, it's not tuning. I'm not worried about the tuning. I just want it to just start, idle, and be able to move around without stalling out. So I think that's the first plan, is to do that. And then once I get this car to the point where I can start it and run it, because the valve train doesn't sound that noisy right now, but something's not right. I mean, something's not right where it's like egregiously wrong. like either the one carburetor, two carburetors are not running, or we've lost a bank of distributors or ignition. So let me get to the bottom of that first, and then from there we'll kind of dig a little bit deeper as far as what the rest of the car is doing as far as oil leaks and clutch and everything like that. So the plan on this car is to basically do a tune-up. I mean, start at a baseline. I want to pull the distributors out and check to see what kind of condition they're in. And then from there, start looking at the carburetors. There's several things that are going on with this car. And sometimes when you assume one thing and you don't check everything else, you could just be chasing your tail, trying to fix where it's all affected by something else. So since I don't know this car and the owner doesn't really know the history, he's only been told what has been done on the car, we're going to go through it and double check to make sure that everything is done correctly. You know, the previous shop said that they tuned the carburetors. Well, that could mean a lot of things. And from what I can see, not all the carburetors look like they came out. You know, one's cleaner than the other, one's clogged, one's not. I don't know. And then there's some RTV where it really shouldn't be. So I think the best thing we should do is just take those out too. So first thing is first, get the distributors out, check those, and then start taking these carburetors out and cleaning them out. All right, I pulled the distributor out of the 400 GT, and it's got some weird things. It's got this gasket on the top, which, you know, kind of jammed the cap on, wasn't really seating right. It's a single set of points, so there's no phasing involved. So I'm just going to throw this on the distributor machine and just check to see if it's advancing correctly or not. And first off, the points are pretty crusty. I mean, you know, obviously they're rusty. They look like, you know, they just seen some time. I don't know about mileage, but a lot of times all this rust and everything kind of fouls up the points. And I checked the gap. The points are starting to erode a little bit, so it's probably lost its layer of tungsten. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the light, and then you're going to see the strobe, hopefully, and then you'll see it bouncing around. So I think the advance weights on this are kind of sticking. So let me see if this is going to get loud when I turn it on, but I think you'll see what I'm talking about. So what you saw was as I'm slowly increasing the RPMs of the machine, the points were starting to just move, you know, sporadically. So it was kind of sticking. It wasn't, you know, an advance curve should be nice and smooth as it goes up to the full advance. I'll have to check the specs on a 400 GT and how much full advance that distributor should get, but I don't think it's advancing enough. So you're starting already with a distributor that's not advancing evenly, and then it might not be giving full advance. So without full advance, this car is not going to run the way it should. I think I'm going to send it to a buddy of mine and have him go through them. I mean, I can do this and take it apart and put new points and all that stuff in it, but I've got so much work here at the shop. Sometimes it's easier to send it to a buddy of mine, have him take care of it while I'm working on something else on this car. So that's what I'll do. I'll probably put these, pull the other distributor out, and I'll put these in a box and send it on down to my friend and have him take care of it. But yeah, on to the next, on to taking the other one off. So I'm going to start taking these velocity stacks out, but I don't think they were installed properly because they're all kind of cocked in different directions. I mean, they're the way they're put on the DCOEs, they angle a certain way, and they should come out all even straight across. And these, the way I could see them inside the this air box, they're kind of like funky. So it might be a struggle to get them out, but when I get them out, I'll realign them when I reinstall them. The struggle with this setup is that the air filter doesn't come out until I remove each velocity stack inside this air box. Because if you look at this, I can't get this further out than this because of the brake booster and also the air cleaner. See, I can get it out that far, but that's about it. So the only way to do it is to take the velocity stacks out, and then usually what happens is the whole air box comes out with the air filter in position. So it's a little funny the way it works, but that's just the way it's going to come out. I'm always looking for signs of previous repairs, so it gives me an idea of what I'm up against, because I go into these cars blind, not knowing who worked on it. Usually I don't know who worked on it and what they've done in the past, and oftentimes I tell people no one sells a Ferrari that's like perfect. It's always got the seller usually just says, oh, it's time to sell the car, or either a big repair is coming up and they're like, sell the car before you need it done. Like, for instance, this car needs a clutch. So, maybe it was sold just because the clutch, had to be done, and the previous owner was just like, you know what, time to sell the car. I don't want to spend, thousands of dollars doing the clutch on this car. I'm just going to cut it loose. But then there could be other things that are wrong with the car that that they never talked about. Maybe it just wasn't running right. I mean, I could tell from the distributors that they hadn't been out in years, so when was the last time this car got a tune-up? So the latest thing I found as I'm taking these carburetors off is a ton of RTV, this red RTV that you could see down there that's on the carburetor base plates. Now, that's not good, because you don't want to put RTV there. First off, red RTV does not play well with fuel. So if you're trying to seal carburetors to the base plates, RTV is not exactly the right stuff. Not that you should be using any of it. You should be just using regular gaskets, because it's being exposed to fuel vapors all the time. So I bet you when I pull these carburetors off, you'll see this squeeze out on the inside of the carburetor, but it's not going to look the same as it on the outside. It's going to be eroded from the fuel. So and then why did they put RTV here? Normally you could put this stuff in dry, because it's the carburetor base plate with a Bakelite spacer and then the aluminum intake. That shouldn't leak. So did they do it because it was a precautionary measure, or because these carburetors had vacuum leaks or base plate leaks? Normally with a DCOE, these base plates are pretty solid. They shouldn't be warped. So normally you wouldn't have those problems. So I'm going to take a look at these as I take these carburetors out to see how flat the base plates are, how flat the all the surfaces are made together, and hopefully they just did it because whoever's working on this thing decided the RTV was a good precautionary measure, to seal the carburetor to the base plates. But one of the disappointing things is these carburetor nuts to take the base plates out were super tight. So that's another sign that makes me think, okay, well, whoever gorilla tightened these carburetors down were chasing vacuum leaks, and that's why they put RTV in. That's why they over tighten it. And when you over tighten the carburetor base plates, you only bend them more. So it kind of works counterintuitively, thinking that you just crank down on the carburetor ears, and what you end up doing is you bend the ears of the carburetors and you make more leaks on the center of the carb. As suspected, RTV all inside here. The thing that frustrates me is that, there are O-rings here and they're collapsed, because you can see that they're no longer round. They're supposed to be round, but they've been squished flat. So all you have to do is just buy new O-rings. Why would you seal all this RTV? Because you could see that there was squeeze out on the inside, on the outside of the ring, but where did all the RTV go on the inside of the ring? Well, it got sucked into the engine. So, not that it's a deal, it's not going to kill an engine by sucking RTV into the combustion chambers, but it's just the wrong way to go. I mean, this stuff is not made for fuel, so that's why there's none of it on the inside, because it's exposed to the fuel vapors, and then the rest of it on the outside is just squeezed out. Just get new O-rings. So, that's what I'm finding. So I started to take apart the DCOE carburetors just to get them disassembled so I could put them in the ultrasonic cleaner. I won't bore you with a full video of these carburetors because I've done it before. I'll put a link in the notes so that if you want to see the full tear apart, you can go back and see the last set that I did. But these are just need to get cleaned. That's all that I need to get done. These O-rings are pretty hard on the other ones, so these are probably all going to have to be replaced. Yeah, they're pretty compressed and falling apart here, so I think I'm going to get rid of those and replace those. Pull the accelerator jet. What I found was there's this residue on the end of this, so that was probably clogged up all the little holes. I'm going to ultrasonic clean these and then check the little sprayers, because I think that was causing a lot of the issues running there. But I kind of figured if those jets were clogged, there's probably a lot more stuff going on inside of the carburetor that's getting clogged, because all that gum and junk in here is probably clogging up all the other jets and needle and things like that. So you can see how gummy, cruddy the end of that is. There's a tiny little hole in there for the accelerator squirter, and sure, it wasn't working. So I got new O-rings to install on these carburetors. They go on the accelerator pump cover, or the little plug. The old ones were just falling apart and breaking and dry rotted, and that's a problem, because once that seal is broken, then you can't get a good squirt on the fuel on the accelerator pump. So I ordered, instead of ordering a whole rebuild kit, I ordered these 7x2 millimeter O-rings, and they're Viton, so they're supposed to be fuel safe. I mean, I think they're exactly the same material as this. The only problem is it was like $7, or I think it was like $5 worth of O-rings. I needed 12. I got 25 of them, and it was I think it was like $7 or $10 of shipping. So unfortunately, it is what it is. I mean, I could have ordered more stuff, but these days they get you on shipping. So it might have been like $7 of O-rings, but you paid $10 for shipping or whatever it was. But needed them, got them in, and I'm putting them in. So it's next step is to put everything together and check the accelerator pumps. Okay, I want to make sure that the accelerator pumps are working, so I filled the fuel bowl up with some fuel. And you can see it squirts all the way out to there. So that's working. All right, on to the next one. Okay, carburetor number 2. Oh, this one doesn't seem to be working right. One of them squirting. This one needs to be checked. What's up with that? That's better. All right, 4 more to go. So I got my distributors back from David North down in New Jersey, and all cleaned up and ready to go. It's funny, even as you turn it, you should be able to hear it. Just you can hear it moving. It just sounds right. So new bearings, new everything looks great. So I'm gonna put these in. So what's interesting is between David and I, we don't think this distributor has ever been serviced. These 2 distributors, you know, I have to go look at the mileage on this car, but we don't know if this has ever been serviced, because from the looks of it inside, he says it was so gummed up that he wasn't sure if these things ever had been apart, because it just, everything was original, all the pieces are there, but it just really needed to be done. The other interesting thing is, as I took apart or looked at the flywheel to put marks on the car, I don't think anybody's ever put marks on the car. Let me show you why. By the 400s, actually started with the 365s, Ferrari started to put the timing marks on the bottom of the engine. So the window to time this thing is no longer from the top on the flywheel, but rather on the bottom. But what's also interesting is that I put a yellow mark where the 11 degrees before top dead center is supposed to be. There's another mark, if you look carefully, it says PM 16. So, and the pointer is right at the bottom of that little screw up there. You could just see it. So anybody who works on Ferraris, we end up putting marks on the flywheel just simply because, I don't know if it's that we're all of a particular age, but those marks are really hard to see, especially with the timing light. So we end up putting marks on it just so that we could differentiate between, you know, full advance and initial advance, where AM 11 degrees on this particular engine, this 400, is supposed to be. You can put a mark on the PM 16, that's top dead center, but more importantly, I'm looking for that mark on AM 11. However, when I took this window out and started turning the crank and looking at the flywheel marks, there was no paint on the flywheel. So I sat there and said, how did anybody time this engine without putting marks on it to see? So it's really led me to think maybe no one's ever checked the timing on this. I don't know, but it seems weird to have an engine that doesn't have, the distributors have never been out, never been serviced, and the marks are not even painted. So who knows what's going on? But I'm looking forward to putting this thing on the correct marks and see where we are. So I'm going to attempt to show you how to do static timing on a Ferrari distributor. So basically, a distributor is nothing more than a switch. It turns on and off, and what it does is it opens and closes points, and all it actually acts like is just a switch that collapses the field on the coil to discharge it and send a spark. So what I want to do is I want to find the moment that this switch actually opens. If you look inside, there are points that open and close, and as the rotor turns, or the engine turns, each time that light goes off is what you would call an event in which the ignition would spark. So as the distributor turns, it recharges the coil when the light is on, and then when it goes off, it discharges the coil. Recharging, discharge, recharging, discharge, recharging, discharging. So this is a 6-lobe rotor, so this one runs half the engine, 6 cylinders. So what I'm doing is I want to get the rotor to point to number 1. I have the engine set to the 11 degrees before top dead center. And what I want to do is line it up so that I know for a fact that there's a little red mark here, and also just because I know that position is the number 1 cylinder, that when this distributor turns off, that is when the moment the timing on the engine should be at 11 degrees before top dead center. So what I'm going to do is put the distributor in, run this circuit just like this out of the electrical circuit of the car. I'm going to run this like the same way I have here with the battery through this thing. So basically it's just creating a circuit. It runs this wire that goes from the test light is the positive. It goes to the test light through the distributor. The points is the other side of the switch that runs out of the points back to the negative. So it's just creating this switch so that this light bulb is showing me when the switch is on and off. So when I actually get this in the engine where it's close, I'm going to turn the engine until that light goes off. And I'm going to confirm that we are at 11 degrees before top dead center. If it's not, there's some adjustments in the distributor, there's adjustment all around that I can actually get it. But that's how I statically time the distributor. Now, once the engine's running, it's going to need a little bit more adjustment, and that's what the slots are on the bottom of the distributor to turn so you can get it close. But you want to get it close enough so that when you statically time it, it turns off. So I'm going to hook this all up. This car makes it a little bit more difficult just simply because the timing marks are on the bottom. So I have to get a wrench on the flywheel or on you know, to turn the engine over while I'm underneath and run this light so that I can see it from down below. So let me get that rigged up. But this is basically the setup that I'm going to do in the car so that I can have the engine turning the bottom of this distributor to get me to this point where it turns off. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so the light's on, which means the points are closed. When the points are closed, that means it's charging the coil. What I'm looking for, and I got a camera up here pointing at the marks, what I'm looking for is when I crank the engine over clockwise, it's going to come up on the timing event, and then that light is going to turn off. And slowly turn the engine until the light goes off. Right there. Where am I at? Okay, so the timing mark is very close. I'm going to go up top, and I want to put it exactly on the yellow mark and see if I can get the distributor to turn off. So right there, that's top dead center. Or rather, that's AF11. So I could lock that distributor down. That's where I want to be. So now all I have to do is do that to the other side. So the 712 bank was really far off. So I had to pull the angle drive out. It's a little crusty. I'll clean all this stuff up. But what I was checking to see was that the distributor, there was no adjustment that I could do on the slotted adjustment or the foot on the distributor to actually make up the points where it would actually turn off right there. So setting the AF11 for this 400 GT, this point where the light goes off, it was too far. I couldn't adjust anything to get it there. I suspect somebody had pulled this angle drive out and tried to reseal it and then put it back in wrong. So it needed, there's a spline drive in there that if it's one turn off, you can see how the spline drive turns the rotor on the distributor. If you turn that and get it off by one tooth, there's not enough adjustment for you to make up the difference. So you'll be way off and you won't be able to get it to adjust. So what has to happen is the spline drive has to come off. I have everything set to the center of the adjustment right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it. So again, this is AF11 right there. I'm going to mark everything and then slide this back onto the engine. That should get me into at least a good static timing. I hope that makes sense. Well, the left distributor was not as easy as the right distributor, but I ended up retiming it, got the distributor to time in on the marks, and I also installed all the carburetors. So we're just about ready to fire it up. What a difference a little bit of tuning can do. So if you remember back when I started it earlier, it just wouldn't stay running. Now it idles and I'm about to take it out for a drive to see how this feels, but it's running a lot better. Still a little rough, still needs a little bit tuning, but I just wanted to see how it feels since I haven't even driven this car yet. But so far it's definitely a better improvement. Okay, I'm going to take this car out for the first drive just to see how it feels. I plan to do more work on it. I just wanted to get it to the point where I could at least drive it and figure out what it needs. I know the clutch is grabbing pretty high, so it probably needs a new clutch. But I just want to see what this feels like. Windows work. Tuning. Still a little cold, but I feel like the clutch is slipping a little bit. I want to just wanted to get it out for a quick run, just to see if everything's working. It needs a valve adjustment, I think, but it's not that bad. It's not noisy. So I think the plan is get this car back, take a look. Wanted to run it a little bit just to see where the oil leaks are coming from, and then make a decision as to how far we want to go. I mean, I think the idea was that we wanted to start at a baseline with this car to do a valve adjustment. But you know what? If the engine's leaking and the front timing chest and all that other stuff, the engine has to come out to fix those oil leaks. That's the time to do the valve adjustment when the engine's out. But if the oil leaks are doable with the engine in the car, I'm going to try to do it. So we're just going to take a look. When I get it back, I'm going to put it back on the lift and see where oil's coming from. Now that I've gotten up to temperature a little bit and driven it, I know what we're up against here. So all right, well, that's the start of trying to get this car running better. Pretty happy with the results on the carbs. You know, now the car runs and drives, as opposed to before I couldn't even get it in idle. It's a good start. I think that we're in a good place. I can pull the transmission, do the clutch, take a look at the oil leaks, try to figure out whether or not how far we want to go with this engine, and then go from there. But here we go on this 400 GT.